Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. This is my preview ahead of Chelsea's Champions League clash with Ajax at the Bridge on Wednesday night. Can Chelsea make it 4 wins in a row in all competitions? And can they potentially get another manager sacked following a victory? We will get to that because I've also got a brilliant guest on today's preview to speak about Ajax. So we'll jump to that when we get to the opposition. But we've also got some exciting injury news, not specifically for this game, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks from Enzo Maresca's press conference. Please like, subscribe. We'll be covering the whole of the game basically. So we'll go through the press conference, we'll look at the opposition, and I'll give you my predicted lineup. Give me your score predictions, your predicted lineups in the comments below. And also, who's getting sent off this time? That kind of has to be a regular prediction, I think, now for Chelsea games, given what we've seen over recent weeks. So get involved in the comments, share this video and podcast around with friends to get more people involved in the Son of Chelsea community. Let's jump into it with the press conference. I was quite shocked when I checked what Enzo Maresca had to say about this game, and he revealed that Liam Delap is close to returning to training, which is amazing news. It really is, given the original assessment when he got injured back in August was November time, maybe even later than that. This is really positive news. Of course, we don't want to rush and, throw Liam Delap straight back into the fire. But it could be a big boost for Chelsea if he is back on the training pitch at Cobham, and then hopefully not too far down the line is able to get back in action, because it would be a big help, especially at that centre forward position, which has been a bit of a problem and concern for Chelsea in recent weeks. So that would only add extra strength and depth to Maresca's squad. So that is really good news. The other one was about Enzo Fernandez, who of course missed the Forest game. He trained on Monday, but there remains a doubt about him in terms of protecting him from injury. He is a highly important player, valuable player, a player who takes up a lot of minutes for Chelsea. However, I do wonder whether he will be thrown straight back into the starting lineup for this game. So we'll get to that and whether I think he'll start or not in my predicted 11. He also was asked expectedly about Jarell Hato against his former club. He said he can play both in terms of a centre-back and a left-back. He also mentioned that he can be a central defender, a full-back, and even a midfielder in the attacking phase. He can play in different positions. And I wonder, narratively again, whether Jarell Hato will make his way into the starting lineup. So as I said at the start, we've got a brilliant guest, an actual returning guest. Only a couple months ago, I had Michael Statham, Eredivisie Mike on Twitter, who is an Eredivisie expert, an Ajax expert, and was great to have him back on the show, because the last time we spoke was expectedly all about Jarell Hato and when he signed for Chelsea. But to get a perspective on Ajax, how they're doing this season, why things aren't going so well, and why, just like at the weekend with Ange Postecoglou, Chelsea might be responsible for getting another coach the sack. So let's jump into that conversation with Mike right now. So Michael, welcome back to the show. The last time we spoke was surrounding the imminent transfer of Jarell Hato. Now we are speaking ahead of Chelsea facing Ajax in the Champions League. How are you feeling about this game from an Ajax point of view? Because it hasn't gone so well, specifically in the Champions League so far for Ajax.
It's been a bit of a disastrous season, to be honest, for Ajax. Saying that as a Dutch football fan, I like seeing Ajax do well. And this season, the results in the league look like they've been okay, but actually they really haven't. So giving a bit of context to it, they've won 4 league games at home, but they were all against lower league kind of opposition, right down the bottom teams. And then the most recent game at home, they lost 2-0 home to ours at Alkmaar, their first kind of test this season at home. Away from home, they've drawn all their games. They haven't actually won on the road at all this season. One of those was away at PSV, thinking that maybe they turned a corner. Good result. But then also some quite poor results in there. Poor defending, not keeping clean sheets. Ajax are struggling. And there was a season that your viewers may be aware of where Ajax were down the bottom of the table at the start of the season. They ended up finishing 5th that year. And it was recovering a really disastrous start. A lot of players were bought incorrectly. There was a little bad scouting. They moved past that last season with Francesco Farioli as manager, and they were able to nearly win the league title. But then they've kind of regressed half back into what they had the other season, which was disjointed attacking, players that don't seem to be in the right places, poor coaching, poor man management. Johnny Heitinger is a manager. You may remember him being a player with Everton. He was with Arne Slot as an assistant head coach last season. He just isn't doing a good job. And for me, he's a dead man walking. I don't see how this improves. So coming to the game against Chelsea, I think Chelsea will thrash Ajax.
Mm. I mean,
Absolute mess.
based on the results, specifically in the Champions League, where, losing to Inter is not a disaster.
No.
Inter are a team who've, of course, they made the final last season, like their experience. But the Marseille one really stood out to me because there's a game where I probably just from kind of a amateur kind of distant viewer of both teams, I would say, well, surely Ajax historically have the more experience here, Champions League recent experience. What was it about that game that went so disastrously wrong? Because that surely as well is a bit of a red flag, as those are the games in your league phase that you're thinking these are the ones we need to be picking up maximum points.
Yeah, away to Marseille. Tough game, of course, but you want Ajax to give it a good go. You lose 2-1. You're not too worried about it. You draw the game and get a surprise win, and it's great. But I think there was a lot of criticism directed at the likes of David Klaassen, used to play in the Premier League. Players that seemed past it, the fans would say, that defensively they weren't resolute enough, that they couldn't tactically adjust for the challenge of Marseille. There were a lot of criticisms, to be honest, directed at the players. There are some moments where they are looking good, but other moments are set up poorly. Other moments their heads are dropping and it's not good enough. It has been quite. Ajax are kind of like the Man United of the Netherlands, and if something goes wrong with Ajax, then people jump on it straight away. The media, myself being like that sort of English language voice of Dutch football, I do feel like I'm part of that problem probably, and I jump on things, but I don't see it getting any better. Ajax were unbeaten in the Eredivisie, and they had 2 tough games in the Champions League. You don't mind if you lose them, but one major criticism I can direct at the club is with one of their technical directors, Alex Krus, who hired Johnny Heitinger as manager. After the Marseille game, he said, "Oh well, I thought we'd lose that one 3-0 anyway." It was his quote. And that is not something you say about your team. They lost that one 4-0. He felt like he was justified. He said, well, I think we'll only get 8 points out of this group of teams we've got to play. And there's a lot of things at Ajax at the minute which are giving me signals of the season they had a couple of years ago, which kind of went downhill quite quickly and got quite ugly. And I expect change actually within the next 6 months. I don't see this carrying on.
Funny thing is, Chelsea and Ajax, despite both having long sort of European, especially Champions League history, it was actually only in 2019 the first time the 2 clubs met in the Champions League. And of course, the last time these 2 teams met at the Bridge was that insane 4-4 with Frank Lampard. Of course, that game in particular was with a Ajax team that still boasted, I think, especially Hakim Ziyech, because it was the season before he joined Chelsea, and there was still some very good players. Andre Onana was in goal. That's how long ago it was. It still had. I know some of the players had left from the previous semi-final team, but there was still some very good players in there.
Yeah.
Other than Wout Weghorst, there doesn't seem to be many names that I think Chelsea fans will look at in this Ajax team and will stand out. Even the 2019 team, I think there were some names there that had kind of gained some notoriety the season before. Are there any names that really stick out to you, or young talents that you feel like, yeah, sure, it's not going well right now, but they may turn into a future star?
Yeah, there are a couple, and they have been showing their quality in flashes. And I think with better coaching, they become very good players for Ajax. Kenneth Taylor in midfield is a gem from their academy who's been progressing into a regular for them. Could absolutely play in a top 5 league in Europe. Could have moved in the summer, but didn't. For me, would fit in the Premier League with his athleticism, passing, eye for an all-round midfield game. Yeah, Kenneth Taylor, I keep an eye on him. He's like their number 8 in midfield, nice and technical. I think other than that, Oscar Gluck is a player that will attract some attention as he goes on with his Ajax career. Only joined in the summer from Red Bull Salzburg. And he is their kind of creative outlet. There was criticism aimed at Heitinger again at the weekend because Um, Ajax were losing at home to RZ, and he brings off Gluck, their main number 10 attacking outlet, and brings on a defensive midfielder. And then says that our midfield was losing the battle against RZ. But I can't find one Ajax fan that agree with that decision. And yeah, it was bizarre. Gluck will bring that attacking quality, and I hope he gets minutes. He might even start as a false nine, could start on the wing, but he's better as a 10. So we'll see how they adjust for the challenge of Chelsea and just how long it holds out for. I mean, Premier League fans will know that Man United beat Liverpool at the weekend at Anfield, and it was a shock result. If Ajax do something similar at the Bridge, I will equally be shocked. I just don't expect it to happen. Some of the players have got good quality, and I think with a better coach, such as Farioli, had he stayed and not moved to Porto in the summer, I think they give Chelsea a good game. But unfortunately, at the moment, they're just not in that right place for it. And I just think my prediction, I posted about this on X, was even though Ajax had an unbeaten start to the season, after the international break, they faced RZ, which they lost, Chelsea, and FC Twente, another big challenge in the Eredivisie. And I just don't see them win any of those three games. And Ajax missed their chance to sack Heitinga in international break. They'll keep him, and they'll have more disappointment and embarrassment ahead. It's just going to get worse for them. Kind of hoping that Chelsea rub it in a little bit here, so their job gets done a bit quicker, and we say goodbye to Heitinga, and we see a bit of a movement up above the club, so that the Ajax can get back to what they are capable of achieving this season. They're not as bad as technical director keeps making out, that they're in this transitional season this season. They only won the league last season with the same group of players, so yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, it's certainly in terms of, again, you talk about people, they'll look at Dutch football and they'll sort of, a bit like the Man United effect, right? They'll look at Ajax and it's kind of the standout name in terms of, well, why aren't they top of the league? You just assume they're top of the league because they're the big club, the historic club. So yeah, whether Chelsea can capitalise on that will be of interest. Just before we wrap up, obviously the last conversation we had was about Jarell Hato, and I
Yeah.
remember when we spoke, it was about, is this a year too early for Jarell Hato? It's been a mixed bag for Jarell Hato at Chelsea so far. Not just in terms of actual minutes, but also in terms of position, because he's actually had to play more recently. The most recent appearances we've seen from him, specifically against Liverpool, off the bench, was as a centre back rather than as a left back. And I think a lot of people were quite impressed with what Jarell Hato offered in a big win for Chelsea, when he probably didn't expect to get off the bench in the first place. From a distance and watching him, and he may feature in this game. How have you looked on Jarell Hato so far? Because I don't think anyone will say it's been a resounding success, but like, he has got minutes, and I think there is room absolutely for him to get more.
Yeah, I mean, I said when he left the club, like I don't keep as many eyes on Premier League clubs because I can't with my eyes on Dutch football and all the teams in that league. So I wouldn't know other than looking on his stats of how he's gotten so far. I kept tabs on the minutes he has been getting, but I admit I've not watched him play in those games. But it's kind of what I said to you, wasn't it? He's come for whatever reason, whether it's money or the Chelsea factor, or because he genuinely thinks that it will progress his career. And he has been in and out of the team, hasn't he? Like I predicted with you, that he would need to come in and be that first choice left back to have a good chance of getting to the World Cup in the summer. He's lost his place with the Netherlands squad. He wasn't selected. I mean, Hartman from Burnley was selected as a second choice left back in the team. There are a plethora of centre backs that are Dutch that are all high quality. Harto's good and could easily get back into that Dutch national team if he's playing, but it doesn't look he's playing enough. But I'm pleased to hear that he has had an impact. Really good left back and centre back. I think he can play both, and I think we should never try and nail him to one of those positions because he can play in both very well.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting conversations is because of Colwell's injury and now Badiashiel's injury, in terms of a left-footed centre back within Maresca's options. I think Hato has suddenly kind of risen in that sense as well,
Yeah.
like in terms of suitability. If you want to have a left footer in your defence, I mean, not just as a left back, but it is intriguing, especially narratively against his former club. Whether he starts this game, it will be intriguing to see if he gets any minutes and how he performs. But thanks so much, Michael, for joining me again, as we did last time. As I do with all my guests, just a chance for you to promote where people can find your great work about the Eredivisie.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So I'm Michael Statham, and you can follow me on X at Eredivisie Mike. But I do a lot of work with Football Adanya. There's 2 or 3 of us that do podcasts. We've got a website, Twitter and YouTube. Yeah, all sorts of stuff like that. But it's all English language content on Dutch football, the national team and the league as well. So if you're interested in either of those 2 or both, come and check us out. We've got lots and lots of content over there on Football Adanya, which is spelled football, same as English. Adanya is orange, but replace a G with a J.
So really interesting to hear from his perspective of how bad things are with Ajax. And it is true, because Ajax, their status in European football, their status in world football really, especially if you're not an Eredivisie expert, if you're not someone who watches the league, you'll be quite surprised that Ajax kind of aren't top of the league, aren't flying. This Ajax team is very different to the one we faced back in 2019 in that incredible 4-4 game. There aren't many players, I think, with this team that you look at and go, all right, they are on the precipice of making a move. But Ajax traditionally, historically, have a great track record of developing young players. So you don't want to go into this game with complacency. Despite their problems off the pitch, Chelsea need to win this game. I think that is undeniable. It's one of those bankable Champions League games that Chelsea need to get maximum points from, because, you know, we've got Karabag in a couple of weeks. Have actually done a little bit better than we expected. And then I believe the next one after that, or at least pretty close after that, is Barcelona. So, Napoli, Atalanta. There are games within this league phase that we looked at when the draw was made that haven't really changed. I think, especially after losing the opener against Bayern, where, if Chelsea want to get through to the knockout stage, these are ones you need to be putting away, especially at the Bridge. And that, of course, will inform some people's predicted lineups, because are you going full strength within this game? No matter what happened at the weekend in terms of suspensions, in terms of resting some players, reintroducing some players into the first team, you do have some limitations. One of them, and the most obvious one, is no João Pedro, because of course he received the second yellow against Benfica, so he is unavailable for this game. Enzo Fernandez is a doubt. In terms of the defensive players, yes, you have more strength in depth, but some players who haven't really played football quite consistently in recent weeks, and I think we saw with Romeo Lavia, as we have seen with other players this season, when you throw them straight into a starting place, sometimes they aren't quite ready for that, and that can cause you problems within the game. So I think it's balancing that out, but it's the rotation that we know was going to come with this season, and it's about balancing that out, because of course after this we go against Sunderland at the weekend at the Bridge as well, a team who have been causing a lot of problems this season and have done so much better than anyone anticipated. So balancing those things out, I think, is going to be of intrigue to me when I see that starting lineup drop. So in goal, I'm going with Robert Sanchez. Obviously, clean sheet for him at the weekend. He remains in goal, and especially in terms of this game, are we going to see a few more direct passes looking to maybe exploit Ajax? I'm going to start Malo Gusto over Reece James, and this is not based on performance really, or like who's the better player, who's the more integral player. Again, I could see some people wanting to start Reece, and I'm not going to get angry if he starts, because listen, I think Reece is in great form at the moment. He is so influential. It's wonderful to see how great Reece looks, how healthy he looks. I mean, at a base level, given what he's gone through in recent years, that in itself is something to celebrate every time he steps on the pitch. However, with Gusto's red card, he ain't playing at the weekend, and because of the nature of our fixtures and how thick and fast they're coming at the moment, I feel like it's a chance to rest Reece. You can bring him off the bench. Gusto should probably take up a ton of minutes here, and I think he should start at right back. Centre back is, again, quite a confusing position. I thought Josh Achimpong was brilliant at the weekend, and I'm going to maintain him in the starting lineup, but I think he may start on the left side, because I think Tosin will come back into the starting lineup. He came off the bench later on in the game against Nottingham Forest, and defensively, although we kept a clean sheet, we can't really say it was an exemplary defensive performance. We gave away a lot of great chances to Nottingham Forest, and that is something that was self-inflicted as well, that needs to be rooted out pretty quickly, because we have seen it as a consistent theme this season of Chelsea really shooting themselves in the foot and presenting some great opportunities to the opposition. That is just a general thing across a variety of players, but I think Tosin did the media pre-game. I think he'll start this game. But I'd like to see Josh Achimpong. I was tempted to go Tosin and Fofana. But again, it's that kind of easing players back into minutes rather than throwing them into the fire. So I'd like to see Josh Achimpong, because I thought he was really, really good at the weekend and going to be full of confidence after his first Chelsea goal. I am actually going to start Jarell Hato. Again, it's this balancing act at the moment of you want to maintain a very strong starting 11, or you want to maintain a starting 11 that you feel can go out there and get the job done. But it's also about using the depth of your squad and wanting to keep players fresh and firing. And I think we bought Jarell Hato for these exact moments, right, where you can give Cucurella a rest, where we weren't able to last season because there was no suitable left-back cover. And I think it'd be a great opportunity for Jarell Hato against his former club to showcase why Chelsea bought him. So I think maybe Jarell Hato, for me, this game, the Wolves game in the Cup, feel kind of certs for me. And if Jarell Hato can perform really well, it's not just about, you're going to get the odd League Cup game. You're actually good enough to get serious minutes, because this is a serious game for Chelsea. It's not, charity minutes here. It's you need to be performing to a high level. My instinct is he'll go with Cucurella. Cucurella, a bit like Pedro Neto, plays every single game, it feels like. But I'll go Jarell Hato, give Cucurella a bit of a rest, maintain him for the weekend, and again, you have him off the bench if you need to later in the game. I think Enzo Fernandez might not start this game. The way Maresca was saying, protect him from injury, again, he'll look at the injury situation of so many players this season and think, is it just safer, right? Like, we can bring Enzo off the bench. What I would like to see is Santos and Caicedo as your midfield too. So Santos playing in a deeper position, and just seeing how he does. We haven't seen much of Santos and Caicedo, to be fair. It didn't work out that great, mainly due to Santos's own stupidity really against Brighton. That cost Chelsea dearly on that occasion. But I think it'd be a big opportunity for Andre Santos if he does start. And again, if you're trying to shield players, rest them a bit, Santos, Caicedo. Santos, I think, hopefully can have more of a bigger influence. I mean, he wasn't that far away from scoring at the weekend, so we need to factor that in. But obviously, in terms of that first half performance, didn't really dominate in the way you would have hoped when he got a Premier League start. And Caicedo, only 45 minutes at the weekend. I think he'll start this game, hopefully with Lavia and probably Enzo Fernandez on the bench. You have a chance to rotate and rest Caicedo, and he doesn't have to play the full extent of this game, fingers crossed. Then we get into the three behind a striker. I think Steve, for me, has to be playing on the right. Maresca said as much, like, we're trying to protect him in terms of minutes. Obvious. Start him in this game, back at the Bridge. Can he score another goal? Can he be influential? I thought he should have started against Benfica. I think Chelsea's attack was lacking something that night. And the spark, the influence, the ingenuity, the creativity that you want in this game. If there is fragility within this Ajax team, you really want to exploit it. So I think Esteval will start this game. I think Buonanotte will start as the number 10. Buonanotte, it's a strange situation because he isn't really gaining tons of minutes, and he is kind of being thrown from the cold really into some of these games. It was a similar situation to the Benfica game. But you just think in terms of suitability for who plays the number 10, unless you're shifting Esteval into that central role, or you're moving Enzo Fernandez or Andre Santos up, I think Buonanotte is the most suitable profile. But again, it's that risk you take of if you're throwing someone in who hasn't played a lot of minutes, are you then maybe lacking something in intensity? But I think Buonanotte will come back into the team here because you don't have João Pedro, who would obviously play this role. I think Pedro Neto will start on the left. He obviously was really the architect of Forest's downfall at the weekend, and he is such an integral player. He is one of those Willian, Azpilicueta type figures within this current Chelsea group for me, where I feel like 9 times out of 10, even 10 times out of 10, it feels like he starts games because he's influencing in the final third. I think he gives you a consistent work rate. And I think that's something that, compared to Alejandro Garnacho, maybe some other players within this team, Jamie Gittins, who Maresca maybe needs that validity and kind of that knowledge and evidence really that I can trust you on a consistent basis. I don't quite think he looks at those players in the same way as Pedro Neto. Whatever you think about Neto, and I think he has been a lot better and a lot more consistent this season in terms of end product, and we saw that at the weekend. I think he'll start this game. And up top, I know he's talking about Tyreek George, but for me, it's obvious. Marc Guiu has to start up top for Chelsea. The influence, I spoke about it. If you want to hear about my thoughts of why he made such a difference against Forest, check up in the cards. Listen on the podcast feed. It was my last episode about Marc Guiu, and I think this is a great opportunity to start him, to offer that focal point. I think it gives license for other players to have potentially more freedom, because Tyreek George started against Benfica, it didn't work out. Chelsea's attack just doesn't look the same when either really in recent weeks João Pedro's playing there as a sort of weekend, or Tyreek George. So for me, Marc Guiu, this is the moment to start him. Can he score his first Champions League goal for Chelsea, which would be a huge moment for him? But I think he's earned that opportunity and right to start this game, given his performance and clear influence off the bench against Nottingham Forest. So that is my preview, thoughts, feelings, everything in between ahead of the game tomorrow night at the Bridge. Please let me know your thoughts, feelings in the comments as well, and I'll see you again very, very soon. All the best.